Locked On Podcast Network presents Locked On Sports Today.
The Dallas Cowboys came back from 21 down to stun the defending champs and keep their playoff hopes alive. The Chicago Bears are still leading the NFC North after toppling the Steelers, and Shedeur Sanders made his first NFL start in a win over the Raiders. So now what in Cleveland? I'm Peter Bukowski, starting your day with the can't-miss stories and biggest debates in sports. You're Locked On Sports Today.
Searching all major sports. Found.
Let's start with the biggest story.
The Dallas Cowboys season was cantilevered on the brink in the first half on Sunday against the Philadelphia Eagles, down 21-0, and then 24 unanswered from the Dallas Cowboys, 17 in the second half, and the game winner from Brandon Aubrey after Dak Prescott finds George Pickens on a slant to get into much safer field goal position than they had been in. And it looked like they were content to just be in long field goal range because Brandon Aubrey is that good. Landon McCool from Locked On Cowboys joins me now. I'm not sure what his heart rate would be if they put a whoop on him and gave him a chance to get on the monitors here. But Landon, what changed for this Cowboys team in the second half?
Yeah, I think fortunes broke for them. Honestly, they played poorly in the second half at certain points as well. It's not like they played like a bunch of great football in the second half. They played better, much better, especially on the defensive side of the ball in the second half. I will give them that. But I do think that, the ball bounced their way a couple times. They had a couple of turnovers that clearly helped them out. And then I think George Pickens just seems like, the Thanos inevitable. It's like they could not stop him. And then as the game kind of wore on a little bit, you saw the Eagles defenders specifically just dropping like flies. And it felt like they just couldn't keep up talent-wise on that side of the ball after losing a couple of key players. And the Cowboys were able to move the ball the way they needed to.
Well, and on the decisive Pickens play, aptly a pick play on Quinyon Mitchell got him wide open. But you mentioned the defense. I don't want that to go unnoticed here. In the second half, the Eagles went 3 plays, 3 yards and a punt, 6 plays, 18 yards and a punt, 3 plays, 7 yards and a punt, had a missed field goal, fumbled, and then it was that last possession. Landon, the punt at the end, they needed a stop with a chance to go win the game, and they got it. This Cowboys defense, the first, 6-8 weeks, there's no chance that version of the Dallas Cowboys defense is getting those stops.
Yeah, the difference in this defense since the bye week has been incredible. And obviously it starts with Quinnen Williams, and that's going to be the headliner, and it should be. He played incredible again tonight. But I think it's opened things up for everybody on that defensive line. I mean, you saw Osa Odigizua with an enormous sack that pushed the Eagles out of field goal range at that certain point in the fourth quarter. And then I just think they're getting better cornerback play. Kalen Carson was kind of in and out of the game at certain points. He did give up a couple of big plays, but he also made a couple of big tackles. And look, it's not fantastic cornerback play, but consider what the Cowboys were trotting out there. They cut Elam this week, which he was their week 1 starter against the Eagles. So, I think they're just getting improved play across the board, but I think it starts up front.
Every year, there is a team that plays inconsistent during the season. They sneak into the playoffs, and they become the, hey, no one wants to play this team. Is that the Cowboys this year, Landon?
Look, I think the Eagles are going to need to collapse in a way that we certainly know the Eagles can collapse. But
they've done it a couple times this year, man. Like for a Super Bowl champion, they have collapsed in some fourth quarters this year.
I will simply point back to the game that we are referring to that the Cowboys just finished playing was a pretty serious collapse. And look, they got A.J. Brown the ball to kind of ease the tensions a little bit there. But I have a feeling that I cannot wait to turn on Philly radio tomorrow morning and just see exactly what the temperature of the city of Philadelphia is like, because I think it's going to get hot. And if the things kind of turn around here a little bit, the Cowboys can stabilize a couple of things. I don't know. I still think they're a year away from being a contender, but they can make things spicy for sure.
Well, I wanted to ask you about that too, because I'm sure our pal Louis DiBiase is going to have a lot to say on Locked On Eagles, but this is a team that, despite their record, has not felt like their record in a lot of ways, because they're winning these ugly games, and they don't seem to be playing great, but they're winning, and they're doing what you kind of expect the Eagles to do. They boa constrict you, and all of a sudden you got no shot at the end. But it seems like this is a weird season for them. A lot going on. You mentioned the A.J. Brown problems. Like, winning ameliorates those kinds of things, but if they start losing, it feels like this could go sideways.
Well, this has happened to them before, where they've had problems
2 years ago.
and winning, kind of covered the stink for a little while, and then suddenly they lose a couple games and the whole thing kind of craters in on itself. So under this same coach, I think again, this is something that I said before game. Like, this was a winnable game for the Cowboys, despite how they played in the first half. And if they did win this game, look, they've got a really tough schedule. They got to play the Chiefs in 4 days that are still scrapping for a playoff spot. Yep. And then you got to play the Lions on the road after that. But if you can come out winning one or two of those 3 games, you put yourself in a position to at least make this interesting.
Stay up to date all year on the Dallas Cowboys by subscribing to Locked On Sports Today and Locked On Cowboys on your favorite podcast app. We're Locked On Sports Today. Coming up, the Bears are still in first place in the NFC North. Before we get to that, the red-hot Rams took on the Bucs. The NFL season is rolling along, and FanDuel is making sure you're ready for the weekend with a can't-miss offer. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet hits, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. I love using FanDuel because it fits how I want to bet in the moment, whether it's building a same-game parlay or jumping in live as the action unfolds. It's quick, it's easy, and it's the best way to add a little more energy to Sunday. So are you ready to play? Download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com to place your first $5 bet. The Lions had to rally in overtime to beat Jameis Winston and the Giants at home.
What an unbelievable football game today at Ford Field, ladies and gentlemen. Lions win 34-27. They need overtime to outlast the 2-win Giants. There were times today you went, wow, we've got a special back in Jahmyr Gibbs, and this offense is rolling, as Jahmyr ran for 219 yards and 2 touchdowns. There are times you watch this game and you went, wait a minute, how are we allowing Jameis Winston to carve us up? 3rd down and longs, catching flea flicker touchdown passes. It was at times an atrocious performance by the Lions, but in the end, they won. It was a win, a much-needed win. But this team has to play a lot better football if they're going to win on Thursday against Green Bay. Plain and simple. Locked On Lions coming up right here on the Locked On Podcast Network, the #1 podcast network.
Chiefs barely escaped in OT with a win over the Colts.
Chiefs survived their own mistakes, a drudgery of a game, and actually stuck to the game plan that we laid out on Locked On Chiefs. Make sure you check it all out, because this was a key, saves the season, it keeps them alive mathematically. We're going to break it all down for you, step by step, the pluses, the minuses, who stood out, and what they have to do to break their own tendencies going forward. It's all going to be on Locked On Chiefs, but this comes down to one thing. You had to reinvent yourself. You had to take a different tack. Andy Reid and the staff were able to do it. Patrick Mahomes and the offense were able to do it. The defense rose to the occasion. Full team win. They got it done, and the Chiefs are still alive. So, to the rest of the NFL, sleeping dragon, still a dragon. We'll see you on Locked On Chiefs.
Rams hosted the Buccaneers in a potential NFC playoff preview.
Buccaneers get blown out on Sunday Night Football, but that is not what everyone is concerned about. I am James Yarko, host of Locked On Bucs, talking about the Buccaneers' loss to the Los Angeles Rams on Sunday Night Football. It was not a pretty game, but the big story here is the injury to Baker Mayfield in a season completely plagued with injuries for this Buccaneers team. They started off the year with key injuries. They lose Mike Evans twice. They lose Jalen McMillan. They lose Kalisha Cansey. They lose Bucky Irving. Now, Baker Mayfield appears to be sidelined with a left shoulder injury. We do not know the extent of the injury, but if Baker Mayfield misses any significant time, their playoff hopes and their goals of winning yet another division title are in jeopardy. Teddy Bridgewater has the opportunity to go out and win a game against Arizona, maybe beat the New Orleans Saints. But if Baker is not available the rest of the year, this Buccaneers team is going to fall apart more than it already has. The defense is in absolute shambles. The offense has been piecemealed together all year, but Baker has been that constant driving force for this team, trying to will the team to victories, trying to keep them in games where they are losing. If you lose your very clear and obvious leader, it's going to be a long rest of the season. For more on this and all things Buccaneers, check out the Locked On Bucs podcast 5 days a week, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
The Patriots won their 9th straight, though they had to squeeze past the Bengals to do it.
It wasn't pretty, and it was pretty costly. It looks like Jared Wilson and Will Campbell had big-time injuries. We'll see what the word is after the game, but the Patriots walk away from Cincinnati with a win. They survived. They couldn't score from the 1-yard line. Their defense almost gave it up. Some coaching questions as well. This one was a rough game against a bad Bengals team, but all that matters is the W. We'll talk about it live in the postgame with Locked On Patriots, and we will talk to you soon.
The NFC North is once again an absolute bloodbath, but as we sit here just days from Thanksgiving, it is the Chicago Bears leading the North after a 31-28 win at home over the Aaron Rodgers-less Pittsburgh Steelers. Lauren Cox from Locked On Bears joins me now. And Lauren, come on, be honest, it would have felt a little sweeter if this was against Aaron Rodgers.
You know, it would, but I think Bears fans are just happy to be at 8 wins and in first place, right? Like, this was a game that didn't really feel like Chicago had any business winning with all the injuries that they were dealing with and some self-inflicted wounds in this one. And so when you barely skate by against Mason Rudolph, you're wondering, maybe Rodgers could have been a difference maker there. So happy to not have dealt with it.
Well, and look, if you're going to be a little cynical about the Chicago Bears, you look at all the close games, you look at all the late game comebacks, you look at the backup quarterback situation, you say, okay, well, this team is fake. Well, the wins count, just so everyone knows. So, Lauren, tell me, in your opinion, how real are these Bears?
Yeah, I think they're real in the sense that I don't think there are very many teams in the NFL that are like truly good and infallible this season. Like, everybody has gone through this year looking good and looking bad. There's very few teams that you're like, oh, they have just been solid from start to finish, and I have no questions or no doubts. So I don't think the Bears are one of those teams, but I also don't think they're a bad team either. I think they're right in this mix of teams. They're like, yeah, any given week, they could probably hang with most teams in the NFL, but you're also not going to be surprised if they put up a stinker against a good opponent at any given point.
The other part of this, Lauren, is, as you know, the schedule to close is brutal. They've got the Philadelphia Eagles. I don't know if you know this, the defending Super Bowl champions coming up this week. They've got the Packers, the Browns, the Packers, the 49ers, and the Lions. They'll be favored in one of those games, maybe two. That's a tough stretch to close here, Lauren. Help set reasonable expectations, not just for Bears fans, but for everyone on what the ending here could be.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting because they're 8-3, like, they could go 500 over that final stretch, and it would feel like a big step back and maybe a disappointment from how hot they've been, but that would still put you at 11 wins and a definite playoff spot. So it's hard to like set expectations properly because they're probably going to start losing a lot more than they have been, and yet still finish the season as a strong team with pretty high postseason hopes, not to like go on a deep run, but like the expectations of making it and maybe even winning the division or hosting a playoff game is not out of the question for them either, but it is going to be a tougher stretch to get there. They just built up such a lead in terms of just wins that they can now fall back on and absorb a few losses down the stretch if they need to.
So you have watched this team, of course, closely as part of your responsibilities here on Locked On Bears. We've seen teams in the past win a lot of close games and end up as record-wise being much better than they're supposed to be. We've seen plenty of teams win 9-10 games and be much better than their record indicates. So what, in terms of actual takeaways, in terms of improvement, have you seen? What is the reason this team, not just winning more, but to your mind, is actually improved?
Yeah, I think they're winning in spite of some major flaws, and you can kind of look at it in two ways. You can either look at, oh, well, eventually those flaws are going to catch up with them, or that there are aspects of this team that will get better in those flaws. Those flaws are not necessarily permanent, but are temporary in terms of a bunch of injuries across their defense that somehow doesn't cost them against the Pittsburgh Steelers. And the defense is the side of the ball that actually kind of carries them down the stretch in this game. And flaws with Caleb Williams making mistakes and receivers not being on the same page and offensive penalties that you feel like over time should improve as they have more time on task and more time in the system, and not necessarily be problems that catch up to them eventually, but that they start playing better even as the quality of opponents keep getting better. And so the results may end up still looking similar, and it's harder to notice the team improving because the other teams they're playing against are improving too. And so they still end up being close games down the stretch, but you feel like, boy, they're trending in the right direction and growing in the ways that everyone's been looking for from Ben Johnson and defensive coordinator Dennis Allen in year one.
They're looking for growth from Caleb Williams as well. So I'll ask it this way, Lauren. What is Caleb Williams?
Caleb Williams is an inconsistent young quarterback that gives you enough every single week to put you in a position to win the game. He is still a little bit too inaccurate and misses throws that he shouldn't miss. I think the decision making is sound, but sometimes the ball placement and accuracy is not. That's when the ball is sometimes put into harm's way. He'll still occasionally hold on to the ball too long, but he makes enough good plays and has gotten better at avoiding negative plays to get out of the way and not hold his team back. And then in the fourth quarter of these games, he'll turn it on and become Iceman is the new nickname for how clutch he's been in the fourth quarter. And like, it's more of like that gamer mentality to like, he'll find a way to win even when it hasn't been perfect for the first three quarters. But at the end, he has been as clutch as they come.
Stay up to date all year on the Chicago Bears by subscribing to Locked On Sports Today and Locked On Bears on your favorite podcast app and on YouTube. Coming up, Shedeur Sanders made his first NFL start, and I'm sure the reaction to it is going to be even-handed and mild and fine. The Browns cruised to an easy win over the Raiders in Shedeur Sanders' first start. Locked On Browns host Spencer German gave his thoughts on Sanders' starting debut and what his play means for Cleveland moving forward.
There is no reason to turn things back over to Dylan Gabriel and make him the starting quarterback of this Cleveland Browns football team beyond this week. Shedeur Sanders, listen, we're going to dissect the performance, more nitty gritty here in a second, but Shedeur Sanders did more than enough, in my opinion, to cement himself as the starting quarterback of this football team for the foreseeable future. Listen, maybe like he doesn't end up being the franchise quarterback. We're going to find that out. But at the very least, he is owed a chance to start next week and see if he can keep this job for the rest of the year so that you get a read of what he is, because he showed you some stuff tonight that should leave everybody within the Browns fan base, within the Browns organization, extremely intrigued about the prospects of him being your starting quarterback moving forward. Sanders was 11 of 20. I get it. Not the best completion percentage, 55%. 209 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. I know what people are going to say. 66 yards of that came on a screen pass. His touchdowns came on a screen pass. It counts the same. And that's what I think is important here with Shedeur. He did what he needed to do within the structure of the offense that was being called for him, within the structure of the offense that the Browns built for him during a week of practice, that they were trying to sort of prepare him for his first start and give him all those first team reps. And he functioned in it very effectively and efficiently. And what I loved about it was, yes, he functioned within the offense that they designed for him. But guess what? There were a few plays and a few times, and we're going to talk about these plays. There was a few plays and a few times where he went off script, and he did what he tends to do. And when the lights get brightest, go out there and make something happen, make a big play, have that spark for the offense. He did that. He put his own twist on into what they were sort of calling for him and how they were trying to sort of play things safe. He had that beautiful, and this was the play of the game without question, beautiful 52-yard pass to Isaiah Bond, where it was 3rd and 8, end of the first quarter. Raiders bring a blitz, a gap up the middle, and he senses it immediately, gets out of the pocket to his right, and throws an absolute dot to Isaiah Bond, who had snuck behind his defender, streaking towards the sideline, catches it up at the 10, takes it to the 1, 52 yards, a bomb, an absolutely beautiful pass. And I'm going to tell you, the reactions on the sidelines, the picture that went around from the Browns social media accounts of Myles Garrett with his eyes basically like popping out of his sockets and his hands on his head, like, what did I just see? And he talked after the game about how there's not a lot of quarterbacks in this league that can make that throw. There's just not a lot of quarterbacks in this league that can make that throw. I mean, listen, guys, it was about as perfect as a play as you would get. And at the time, it was the longest pass play of the season for the Browns. Shedeur finished this game with the 3 longest pass plays of the season in total for the Cleveland Browns, including that 66-yard screen pass. I get it. It's a screen. I know people are going to knock that, but it was a big play. It was big play after big play after big play, and you felt like the offense was actually a modern-day offense for as bad as this unit has been all season. And they've turned offense back to the Stone Age with this unit. Like today, they looked like they could function and compete and play in the year of our Lord 2025. It was awesome to see. And I think that's what that reaction is from Myles. It's the reaction of seeing something that you just haven't seen ever or seen in a really long time, and you hadn't seen it in a really long time. 3 biggest pass plays of the season, all from Shedeur Sanders. That's not a coincidence. There was also just an energy about the way that unit functioned today. I'm not going to sit here and tell you it was like worlds better than previous, weeks. They still had a bunch of 3-and-outs. They still punted a ton. There were still a lot of mistakes. He actually had another really good pass play to Jerry Jeudy for 39 yards, which I'm assuming is the other long one that was the 3rd longest of the season. That he was still he was making even more happen on it, and he kind of lost track of where he was. And then Jeremy Chin came and knocked the ball out, and he fumbles, and the Raiders recover, and that killed a drive that you had a promising sort of start to, where it looked like you were going to be able to sort of put yourself in position to score. Like the plays didn't stop. It was there was this energy that he brings with him, and that it's this infectious energy and confidence that he brings with him. And the offense as a whole played better around him. The offensive line played their best game of the season. And I get it, like it's the Raiders, but they still have Max Crosby, and they limited him to the best of their ability. Shedeur sensed things better. He was making some big time throws. Like this was, I'm not going to sit here and tell you it was an elite level performance. You're not an idiot. You saw the game too. You see the box score, you see the numbers, but there's things beyond the box score that he had an impact on in this offense that were tangibly visible on the field if you watch that game in detail and you saw play out in the field. And the biggest one of those, like I said, is the fact that they had 3 big pass plays down the field, or I guess 2 big ones down the field, one that was a screen pass, but the deep shots, that has been missing from this offense. You had 2 big deep shots with this team, at least with Shedeur Sanders under center. Where has that been all year? Like, he brought something to this offense that we haven't seen. And I've said all week that if he was going to win this job, if he was going to have a performance that was worthy of him keeping the job moving forward, that he was going to have to give you something with this offense that he was going to have to give you something with this offense that you hadn't seen before, and he was going to have to show that the offense played better with him than it did with any of these other quarterbacks that have started this year. He did that today. He proved that today. I know people are going to try to diminish it because it's the Raiders and they stink. And I know that people are going to say, it's his first start. There's going to be more tape on him. That's all true. But guess what? You saw a player. You saw a quarterback who, as a rookie, was figuring it out as he went. The drifted in the pocket. I didn't see a lot of that today. And that's something we've all harped on as one of his biggest problems coming out of college. He drifts in the pocket. Guess what? He was stepping up in the pocket today. There was at one point he took a sack, but it was a sack where he found a lane off to the left to escape, and he took off and got dragged down from behind. But I saw that play happen, and I said, that's growth. That's growth right there, because the Shedeur straight out of college would have kept drifting back and then gotten sacked. No, he tried to make something happen. I'm okay. You don't want sacks, obviously, but if you're going to take a sack and you see the growth on the play and you see him not making it a bigger issue that he's going to get sacked or taking a big loss on the play, that's huge. Like, you see the development in real time. You saw an offense that just felt like it had more juice, and that was evident on the scoreboard where they put up 24 points, second most points they've scored this season. And by the way, most of that came from the offense having to put together drives or big plays themselves that would lead to scores. And it wasn't just the defense gift wrapping you touchdowns or gift wrapping you a ball at the goal line. Now, there was the one kickoff, or the one punt return rather, from Gage Larvidan, which I'm so thrilled for him that he made that play. Sets you up with the short field, gives you a chance to punch that one in. So there was that. But I understand that was a somewhat of a gift wrap touchdown, but still it was the offense putting together more sustained drives. It was the offense being able to make plays downfield. Everything about the functioning of this offense today looked better with Shedeur Sanders. That's not a coincidence. And for that reason, this is his job. This should be his job moving forward. There's no reason to go back to Dillon Gabriel, at least not right now. Like, listen, if down the line, if he struggles and you want to go back to him, fine. But right now, Shedeur Sanders has earned the right to play and start next week and to play and start until he convinces you he shouldn't have the job anymore, because the way that he played today, the way that the team played around him, this was progress, guys. This was progress. It was a good thing to see.
And finally, the Ravens are stacking wins despite Lamar Jackson's performance on the field, or at least his production. Baltimore has now won 5 straight and climbed back on top the AFC North, but Jackson is still searching for his fastball after returning from injury. He's thrown for less than 200 yards in 3 straight games and has 1 touchdown in that span. It's got nothing to do with the injury, he says. The team just simply needs to execute better. Maybe Baltimore is just getting the ugly football out of their system now so that they can finally flip the poor playoff fortunes in January. If you're catching this episode after hearing your favorite Locked On show, make sure to subscribe to Locked On Sports Today on YouTube or wherever you get podcasts so you never miss an episode. Also, if you're a new subscriber to Locked On Sports Today, we're here for you with the biggest stories in sports every day. Coming up, the Panthers and 49ers each need a win to stay in their respective division races. So who comes out on top on Monday Night Football? So at least until tomorrow, stay locked on sports today.
Locked On Podcast Network presents Locked On Sports Today.
For more episodes of Locked On Sports Today, go to our video on demand. Click on Sports at the top of your screen. There, you'll find past episodes of Locked On Sports Today, plus other Locked On shows on demand.